the 23rd of October 1900, Volume 4. True love never remains alone. This morning, after I received communion, my adorable Jesus made me see the confessor who was placing the intention of having me suffer the crucifixion. I felt my poor nature as reluctant, not because I did not want to suffer, but for other reasons, which it is not necessary to describe here. But Jesus, as though lamenting about me, said to Father, "She does not want to submit herself." I was moved at his lament. Father renewed the command, and I submitted myself. After I suffered a little, since I saw Father present, the Lord said, "My beloved, here is the symbol of the sacrosanct Trinity, myself, Father, and you. From eternity, my love has never been alone, but always united in perfect and reciprocal union with the divine persons, because true love never remains alone, but produces other loves, and delights in being loved back by the love which it itself has produced. And if it is alone, either it is not of the nature of divine love, or it is only apparent. If you knew how much I delight in and enjoy being able to continue that love in the creatures which reign from eternity and reign still now in the most holy Trinity, this is also why I say to you that I want the consensus of the intention of the confessor united with me to be able to continue this love more perfectly, symbolic of the sacrosanct Trinity. End of the reading. The 23rd of October 1906, Volume 7. How in these times everything is effeminate. As I was in my usual state, my adorable Jesus came for a little, and all oppressed and afflicted, he wanted to pour his bitternesses into me. Then he told me, "My daughter, the bitternesses that creatures give me are such that I cannot contain them. This is why I wanted to share them with you. In these times, everything is effeminate. Priests themselves seem to have lost the masculine characteristic and acquired the feminine characteristic. So only rarely can a masculine priest be found. The rest, all effeminate. Ah, in what a deplorable state poor humanity is." Having said this, he disappeared. I myself do not comprehend the meaning of this, but obedience wanted me to write it. End of the reading. The 23rd of October 1911, Volume 10. We must let the life of our hearts be all love, because Jesus wants to take the food within our hearts. This morning, my always lovable Jesus came, but who can say how much in suffering he makes himself seen? It seems that he feels within himself all the pains of the creatures, and they are so many that he looks for refreshment and relief. Now, after keeping him with me in silence, telling him my nonsense of love as refreshment, and adding kisses and caresses, it seemed he was relieved. And then he told me, "My daughter, let the life of your heart be all love. Let nothing else enter into it, because I want to take the food from within your heart. And if I do not find it all love, it will not be enjoyable food for me. As for the other parts of you, you can give to each one its office, that is, to your mind, to your mouth, to your feet, to all of your senses, to some adoration, to some reparation, to some praise, thanksgiving, and all the rest. But from your heart, I want love only." End of the reading. The 23rd of October 1917, Volume 12. The first act that Jesus did in receiving himself sacramentally. This morning, after I received Blessed Jesus, I was saying to him, "My life, Jesus, tell me, what was the first act that you did when you received yourself sacramentally?" And Jesus, My daughter, the first act I did was to multiply my life into many lives, for as many creatures as can exist in the world, so that each one of them might have one life of mine only for herself, a life that continuously prays, thanks, satisfies, loves only for her. In the same way, I multiplied my pains for each soul, as if I was suffering only for her and not for others. In that supreme moment of receiving myself, I gave myself to all, to suffer my passion in each heart, to be able to conquer the hearts by dint of pains and of love. In giving all my divinity, I came to take the dominion of all. But alas, my love remained disappointed by many, and I anxiously await loving hearts, which in receiving me would unite with me to multiply themselves in everyone, desiring and wanting what I want, so that I may take at least from them what the others do not give to me. I receive the contentment of having them as conformed to my desire and to my will. Therefore, my daughter, when you receive me, do what I did, and I will receive the contentment that at least the two of us want the same thing. But while Jesus was saying this, he was very afflicted. And I, Jesus, why are you so afflicted? Ah, ah, how the flood will inundate the countries. How many evils, how many evils. Italy is going through sad, most sad hours. Draw yourselves closer to me. Be in accord among yourselves. Pray that the evils may not become much worse. And I, ah, my Jesus, what happened to my country? You don't love me as before when you would spare others for love of me. And he, almost sobbing, it is not true, I love you. End of the reading. The 23rd of October 1921, Volume 13. Every sanctity begins from the most holy humanity of Jesus, from the sea of his passion. But from it, Jesus makes Louisa pass into the sea of the divine will. The truths about the divine will are channels that open from the sea of the divine will for the good of all creatures. I was feeling all immersed in the divine volition, and my adorable Jesus, on coming, told me, daughter of my will, look into your interior. How peacefully flows the immense sea of my will. But do not think that this sea has been flowing in you for a short time, just because you hear me speak often about my will, but for a long, long time, since my usual way is to act first and then to speak. It is true that your beginning was the sea of my passion, because there is no sanctity which does not pass through the harbour of my humanity. In fact, there are saints who remain in the harbour of my humanity while others move beyond. But then I quickly crafted the sea of my will, and when I saw you disposed, and you surrendered your will to me, my will took life in you, and the sea kept flowing and growing continuously. Each additional act of yours in my will was a greater growth. I spoke to you little about this. Our wills were linked together and understood each other without speaking. And then, by just seeing each other, we understood each other. I delighted in you, feeling the delights of heaven, in nothing dissimilar to those which the saints gave me. While I am their happiness, they make me happy. Being immersed in my volition, they cannot do without giving me joys and delights. But my happiness was not complete. I wanted more children of mine to share in such a great good. Therefore I began to speak to you about my will in a surprising way. And the more truths, effects, and values I spoke to you about, the more channels I opened from the sea for the good of others, so that these channels might give abundant water to all the earth. My working is communicative and always in act, without ever stopping. However, many times these channels are covered with mud by creatures. Others throw stones into them. and the water does not flow freely, but with difficulty. It is not that the sea does not want to give water, or that the water cannot penetrate everywhere because it is not clear. Rather, it is the creatures that oppose such a great good. Therefore, if they will read these truths, not being disposed, they will not understand a thing. They will remain confused and dazzled by the light of my truth. For those who are disposed, they will be a light which will light them up, and water which will quench their thirst, in such a way that they will never want to detach themselves from these channels, because of the great good they feel and the new life which flows in them. Therefore, you too should be happy to open these channels for the good of your brothers, neglecting nothing about my truth, not even the tiniest thing, because as tiny as it may be, it can serve one of your brothers in order to draw water. So be attentive in opening these channels and in contenting your Jesus, who has done so much for you. End of the reading. The 23rd of October 1924, Volume 17. The divine will is the enchantment of the divine eyes. I am going through bitter days because of the privations of my sweet Jesus. Oh, how I miss his adorable presence. Even just the memory of his sweet words is wounds to my poor heart. And I say to myself, and now, where is he? Where did he direct his steps? Where could I find him? Ah, everything is over. I will no longer see him. I will no longer hear his voice. We will no longer pray together. How hard is my destiny? What torture, what pain. Ah, Jesus, how you have changed. You have run away from me. But though far away on the wings of your will, wherever you are, I send you my kisses, my love, my cry of sorrow, which tells you, come back to the poor exiled one, to the little newborn who cannot live without you. But while I was saying these and other things, my adorable Jesus moved in my interior, and extending his arms, he squeezed me very tightly. And I said to him, my life, my Jesus, I cannot take it any more. Help me, give me strength. Do not leave me any more. Take me with you. I want to come. And Jesus, interrupting me, told me, my daughter, don't you want to do my will? And I, certainly I want to do your will, but your will is also in heaven. So if I have done it on earth until now, from now on I want to do it in heaven. Therefore hurry, take me, do not leave me anymore. I feel I cannot take it anymore. Have pity on me. And Jesus again, my daughter, you do not know what my will on earth is. It shows that after so many of my lessons you have not understood well. You must know that the soul who here lets my will live within her, as she prays, as she suffers, as she works, as she loves, etc., forms a sweet enchantment to the divine pupils in such a way as to enclose with her acts the gaze of God in that enchantment. And so the omnipotent one, taken by the sweetness of this enchantment, feels disarmed of many chastisements which the creatures draw upon themselves with their grave sins. This enchantment has the virtue of preventing my justice from pouring out with all its fury upon the face of the earth, because my justice too remains enchanted by my will operating in the creature. Do you think it is trivial that the Creator sees in the creatures who are still living upon the earth his divine will operating, triumphant, ruling, with the same freedom with which it operates and rules in heaven? However, this enchantment in heaven is opposite, because my will dominates in its kingdom as if in its own house, and the enchantment is formed within myself, not outside of me. Therefore, it is my will, that enchants all the blessed with an enrapturing power, in such a way that their pupils are enclosed in my enchantment to be eternally beatified. So it is not they who form the sweet enchantment for me, but I for them. And so my pupils are free and receive no charm. On the other hand, my will, living in the creature who's crossing the exile, is as though operative and ruling in the house of the creature, which is more amazing. And this is why she forms for me a more pleasing enchantment, which charms me and holds such attraction for my gaze as to captivate me, to fix my pupils upon her without being able to move them. Ah, you do not know how necessary this enchantment is in these times in which so many evils will come. The peoples will be forced to eat one another. They will be taken by such rage as to become fierce, one against the other. But the greatest guilt is of the leaders. Poor peoples, they have true slaughterers, incarnate devils as leaders, who want to slaughter their brothers. If the evils were not grave, your Jesus would not leave you as though deprived of him. You fear that it may be for other things that I deprive you of me. No, no, be reassured. It is my justice that depriving you of me was to pour out upon creatures. You, however, never go out of my will, so that its sweet enchantment may spare the people's worst evils. End of the reading. The 23rd of October 1927, volume 23. The Little Girl, How the Divine Will is Kingdom of Life, Necessity of the Knowledges about it, how heaven and earth are there reverently listening to the knowledges of the divine fear, love and tenderness of God in creating man. I felt my poor mind sunken inside the divine fiat, and while continuing my acts in it, I saw a little girl before me, all timid and pale, as if she was afraid of walking within the immensity of the light of the divine volition. And my adored Jesus came out from within my interior, and filling his holy hands with light, he placed that light in the mouth of the little girl, wanting to drown her with light. Then he took more light and placed it in the eyes, in the ears, in the heart, in the hands and feet of that tiny little one. And she remained invested by light. She blushed all over and remained as though enmeshed and overwhelmed within that light. Jesus amused himself in drowning her with light and delighted in seeing her hampered within it. And turning to me, he told me, "My little daughter, this little girl is the image of your soul, timid in receiving the light and the knowledges of my divine will, but I will drown you with so much light that you may lose what remains of the timidity of the human will, because in mine there aren't these weaknesses, but divine courage and strength, insurmountable and invincible. In order to form the kingdom of my fiat in the soul, I lay all the knowledges about it within her as the foundation, and then I take possession, laying my very life within her in order to have my true freedom. See how great is the difference between the kingdom of the kings of the earth and my kingdom. Kings do not place their own lives at the disposal of each individual, nor do they enclose it in them, nor do they enclose the life of the peoples within themselves, and therefore their reigning is subject to ending, because it is not life that runs between one and the other, but laws and imposition. And where there is no life, there is no love nor true reigning. On the other hand, the kingdom of my divine will is kingdom of life, the life of the Creator enclosed in the creature, and that of the creature transfused and identified with the Creator. Therefore, the kingdom of my divine will is of unreachable height and nobility. The soul is constituted queen. And do you know what she is made queen of? Queen of sanctity, queen of love, queen of beauty, of light, of goodness, of grace. In some, Queen of the divine life and of all its qualities. What a noble kingdom and full of life is this kingdom of my will. Now see then the great necessity of the knowledges about it. They are not only the fundamental part, but the nourishment, the regime, the order, the laws, the beautiful music, the joys, the happiness of my kingdom. Each knowledge possesses a distinct happiness. They are like many divine keys that will form the beautiful harmony in it. This is why I am abounding so much in telling you so many knowledges about my divine fiat, and I require of you greatest attention in manifesting them, because they are the base and are like a formidable army that will keep the defense and will act as sentries, so that my kingdom may be the most beautiful, the holiest one, and the perfect echo of my celestial fatherland. Then Jesus kept silent, and then he added, My daughter, when my divine will wants to issue one of its knowledges or one new act, heaven and earth honor it and listen to it reverently. All creation feels a new divine act flowing within them that, like vital humor, embellishes them and renders them twice as happy. They feel as though honored by their very Creator, who, with his omnipotent fiat, communicates to them new knowledges about it, and they await the attitude of that knowledge in the creature, to see the new act of the divine volition repeated in the creature, to have the confirmation of that good, as well as the joy and the happiness that the new knowledge brings. My will, then, takes the attitude of feast, because it issues from itself a divine life that, while being directed to one creature, spreads and communicates itself to all creatures. After this, I was continuing my round in the divine will, bringing myself into Eden, so as to be present when the divine majesty, having formed the beautiful statue of man, was giving life to it, breathing over it with its omnipotent breath, so that I might glorify my Creator in an act so solemn, and love him, adore him, and thank him for a love so excessive and overflowing toward man. And my divine Jesus, moving in my interior, told me, My daughter, this act of forming and infusing life in man with our omnipotent breath was so tender, touching, and of such great joy for us, that the whole of our divine being overflowed so much with love as to enrapture our divine qualities with an enrapturing strength, so as to infuse them in man. In breathing over him, we poured everything into him, and in blowing into him, we placed our supreme being in communication with him in such a way as to render him inseparable from us. This act of ours never ceased, because if in the creation of the whole universe it was our will that constituted itself life of everything, in man we gave not only our fiat, but together with our breath, we gave our very life to him. And this breath of ours has not ceased, so as to continue the generation of other creatures, to render them inseparable from us. When we do a work, our love is so great that after it is done once, the attitude remains of doing it always. Therefore, the ingratitude of man is great, because he denies, despises, offends this life of ours within himself. And just as when one emits one's breath in order to breathe, the breath is emitted and then withdrawn so as to be able to breathe again, in the same way, in breathing over him, we give ourselves to him, and in drawing our breath back, we draw man back into ourselves. But not feeling him come into us because his will is not with us, we feel all the weight of human ingratitude. And this is why we call you, to give you our incessant act, so that as we draw it back in order to issue it again, we may feel you come into ourselves, to receive the fulfillment of our will in the solemn act of issuing our regenerative breath to generate the creatures. End of the reading. There are no more readings today. Have a blessed day.